Okay, this is now the 17th of May 2019, and today's video is about the tarot and crystals, which a lot of people use and I don't. And I mentioned in a video a few days ago about I was taught that people think they're using crystal energy, but actually the crystals are using the people. And a couple of people asked for me to explain this or say more about it. So this is what this is about. And if I could mention as well, I've been experimenting a little bit with a different lens and how close and so on. So one of these days I'll get it right and I'll stick with it. However, I made some notes about crystals, and first I want to say that I'm not trying to pick a fight. If you love crystals and you know, that's fine. I'm not trying to make you do anything, and I'm not trying to pick a fight, and I'm not trying to convince you of anything. I would just want to give you a couple of ideas. And I'm completely aware that because I don't use crystals, I'm speaking from a position of ignorance. I really don't know. I haven't got experience. So if you've been working with crystals and you're happy and you know what you're doing, that's fine. But I never used them. But thing is, I had a good teacher, a really good teacher, and she told me about crystals. So I just accepted it because I had no reason to disbelieve her. And she came from a long background, and she has a lot of understanding about astrology and the tarot and related subjects. So she was pretty expert. So this is where I got the idea from, an expert source, not from somebody who was new to the occult, we could call it. And occult means hidden, right? So she knows about hidden influences. Okay, so that was point one. I don't want to fight with anybody, but you might find this interesting. So point number one is, you get scientists who do experiments on mice. And so the scientist has to get up or be in the lab at 6 o'clock so he can feed them at 6:30 and then every day, and then they take the results and they do the testing and so on. But the thing is, we think that the scientist is modifying the behavior of the mice, but the scientist has to be there at 6 and has to feed the mice at 6:30 and has to take the results at 10:30 or whatever it happens to be. So who's modifying the behavior? Is the scientist modifying the mice's behavior, or is the experiment itself controlling the behavior of the scientist? Because you've got to set your alarm and get up and get to the lab and have everything set up and ready. So whose behavior is actually being modified? It's easy to think that the people are doing it to the animals, but maybe the animals are doing it to the people. And it's the same kind of thing with crystals. We think we're using crystal energy, but maybe it's not so far-fetched to understand that maybe the crystal energy is using us. So that was point number one. The other point is, what exactly is this crystal energy? What are you dealing with? So it's earth energy, I imagine, but does it have morality? It's not people, it's not human energy like the tarot, because it's pictures with the tarot and it's people making sense of them. But with crystals, you're dealing with earth energy. Do we actually know what it is? Do we really know what's going on with it? Does it have morality? So if you're about to make a stupid mistake, does the crystal energy think, okay, well, he really didn't mean to do that, so we're not going to punish him, we're not going to do anything to him? Does it have a morality that understands what you were meaning or what you were thinking, and so it doesn't visit catastrophe upon you. Because you can be playing with energy and you don't know what you're doing, and you can make a mistake and suffer the consequences. Does crystal energy know this and protect you? Or is it a bit like gravity? So you step off a table and gravity doesn't think, wait, he didn't mean to step off the table, so we're going to cushion his fall. You step off the table, you hit the ground hard, and gravity doesn't care. It just is, and it does what it does. And if you step off a table or step off a roof, too bad. Is crystal energy the same kind of energy where it does what it does, and if you mess up, then that's your problem, and it's nothing to do with it? Because, what did I write? Oh yeah, some crystals, let's say, amplify energy. So what's going on if you're in a bad mood, or if you're really angry but don't realize it, and you start using a crystal that amplifies? Does it amplify the negativity and make you more depressed? Or does it amplify the anger or the energy of the anger and make you do something rash and impulsive that gets you into trouble? I don't know. And I also don't know if I mentioned before that I don't use crystals. I have bumped into and had dealings with lots of people over the years who use crystals. And I'm not saying that you personally are like this, but a lot of the people, they know a little bit, like this much, but there's this much that they don't know. And so it's a bit like children playing with matches in some cases. I'm not saying you, but you have to wonder, how much do you know? And how much do you not know? And what's actually going on? So there's a Japanese painting technique called suminagashi, and what you do is you dip ink brushes onto the surface of water, and you get these patterns that form. But the thing is, in order to do suminagashi properly, you have to meditate beforehand, so that the person who dips the brush into the water is at peace. Because you can tell by looking at the pattern that emerges what kind of state of mind the person was in who was actually dipping the brush into the water. So I wonder with crystals, if you're going to use them, do you take however long it takes, maybe even an hour, to meditate and to center yourself before you actually start working with the crystals? And I know a lot of people who didn't. They assumed that they were okay, and they just started working with them. And this is the thing I wrote down here. Let me digress a little bit. If you want to learn, if you're a native English speaker, you can learn French and German and Dutch quite quickly, because there are cognates that are like photograph is English, but it's also kind of German and French and Dutch. So there's a lot of words that are the same, and it's kind of similar. So you can learn it quite quickly, but it takes 600 hours to learn, to become reasonably proficient in French or German. And 600 hours is 1 hour a day for 18 months. If you want to learn Japanese, you need 2,200 hours, and that's like 6 years, 1 hour a day for 6 years. Whereas people read a book about crystals or take a class on 2-hour class on crystals, and then they start working with crystals. So if it's going to take us 600 hours to learn to speak a language that's similar to our own, and languages are human oriented, but crystals aren't. So it makes me wonder, what kind of shape is anybody in who starts working with crystals until they've had, or before they've had, let's say, 1,000 hours of study and examination because people don't take that long. You know, they'll read a couple of books and then they'll start collecting and mixing, putting things together, and you don't really know what's happening when you put one crystal beside another one. Yes, you can read what somebody wrote in a book, but the person who wrote the book had probably several years of experience that they had access to that you don't if you're just a beginner. And then I see photographs or videos of people with a tarot deck with a crystal on top of it. And I don't know what it's doing to that deck, or what it's doing to the reader, or what you're dealing with when you start using that particular deck. You think you've purified it, and you think you've cleansed it, and you think you've done good things to the deck. But how do we know? Have we? What are we actually doing with crystals that we don't know? Because I wrote down Jupiter and Sagittarius because a few days ago I saw this video of this person doing a reading for Cancer for May of this year, and then she turns some cards and she starts talking about Sagittarius and Jupiter, and it's interesting, we've got these two Jupiter cards, and then she starts talking about Sagittarius, how it's optimistic and the life and soul of the party. And the thing is, Sagittarians aren't that optimistic or that much the life and soul of the party. I know that that's what it says in the books, but if you actually think about the Sagittarians that you know, they're really quite serious people. But the books will tell you, yes, they're optimistic and extravagant and life is so the party and always good fun. They're not. So you get, books will tell you something, but you also have to compare what the books tell you with your actual experience, with what's going on in the world. And so if astrology books will tell you that Sagittarians are like this, but they're actually not. And the thing is, Sagittarius, yes, it's ruled by Jupiter, but Jupiter was a chief sky god, and he wasn't this everybody's favorite uncle. Jupiter threw thunderbolts. He's just vicious temper, and if he didn't like it, he would throw a thunderbolt and destroy. And that's what you're dealing with Sagittarius. But books forget that. They're much happier to give you this fluffy, nice stuff about Sagittarius and Jupiter and forget the truth, actually. Because it's easier to be nice. Okay, so books on crystals are all very well, but you have to wonder, what did the writer know? And how much of what the writer says is true? And what are we dealing with? So I have, those are a few reasons why we should be careful when it comes to crystals. So I'm not sure if that answers the question, but I hope it does to some extent. So leave a comment and we'll take it from there. Thank you very much. Okay, bye-bye.